get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say this before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. He's been on the show in the past, and, you know, frankly, it's like popping right now in the M&A world. There's a lot of stuff going on, and there's so many different angles that I think this industry could be going and coming and everything. And I am not an M&A expert. I'm not an expert in a lot of fields. I know how to cold call. I know how to move freight. That's why I have individuals come on the show, you guys, because they can break all these topics down. So I have Mr. Chris Kolquist on the show with Koliway. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join me again today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the show, and like you said, there's a lot going on in the markets, including the M&A market. So, it's kind of fun, and there's a lot going on. So I'm looking forward to the show.
No, it's like every other day now, there's something being announced about, a company, of like all walks of business, right? Companies going out of business, companies doubling down, acquiring, like headcount reductions. Like, I mean, I think the biggest one that recently came up was like, Oracle laid off like 30-some thousand people via email. Like, it's becoming it's always been a dog eat dog world out there, Chris, but it's like really, really like the real players are going to be standing out here now more than ever, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's competitive out there. And what we continue to see and believe is, good operators will be good. They'll survive and they'll grow, but it's more competitive. You got to keep up on technology. You got to stay close to your customers. And in the M&A world, we talk about more as partnering, right? And think about who you want to partner with and grow with going forward. Obviously, there's a capital component, but you just think about how others can help you, because it is getting more competitive and it's moving even faster. We're obviously coming off a long freight recession, which puts even more emphasis on what we're doing here in 2026.
Do you think that, from your standpoint, coming off of there's a breath of fresh air in the market right now, right? In the sense of like there's an actual change. It's not 100% predictability like it has been over the last 4 years, excess capacity, stagnant prices, everything. Like we're, and with your experience, in the brokerage world, you've seen this before. And I think that this next window of opportunity of people looking at new providers might be, I don't want to say the last one, but this might be the last kind of big opportunity to get in the door with a lot of providers because of where AI is, where automation is. I can't sit here today and say everything is going to look the same 12 months from now and how the industry operates. Like, it's changing so fast.
Yeah, again, historically pre-COVID, you could kind of watch the cycles, right? And a lot of it was the COVID impact that went so high. You've had this prolonged kind of freight recession, which makes selling very difficult, as we all know who have been in that. And that was longer than we all thought. Rates have been on the bottom. And I think in the environment we're in today, for a lot of companies, they realize it. They're like, yep, people are taking our call. They're calling us back. So that's just really healthy. And I just think it's going to separate some of the better operators and some of the ones that have a better, probably commercial sales go-to-market strategy, which is really, really critical in these times. But yeah, I think it's been a breath of fresh air for many, but there's challenges that go with that. I mean, if you got contract business, as we all know, you can get squeezed a little bit. And so, but in our world, the brokerage who've been around for a long time, that's what makes it fun, that volatility. And that's where you can bring incremental value to your customers.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really the only way you can separate yourself from competitors, because it's like, I mean, every industry, there's a ton of competition in it, right? But like, specifically as freight brokers, there's like 20 some plus thousand freight brokers that are out there. We're all offering the exact, I don't care what anybody says. We're all in the same box of offering the same service. We all have access to the same prices. We all have access to the same shippers. If you have Google, you can figure all of this information out. But it's like, I look at times right now, this is when you can actually separate yourself, because when there is an actual tightness of capacity that is out there, the individuals and the companies who just post 100% of their freight, this is where they really start to struggle, because carriers stop calling. They don't need to call because people are calling them now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just been so much evolution over the last 5, 10, 15 years on technology and transparency of rates, and just it's leveled the playing field. And then with the loose market, like you said, people have kind of gotten away with some of that. So if you think about in today's world, you really should and be differentiating yourself. Obviously, there's a service component, there's a commercial component, some service offerings and kind of that. But I think having a good story to tell those customers on why you are different. And we all know, because again, if you think about it, we all have access to pretty good technology. We all have access to these rates. It is not, 10, 15 years ago where, a lot of the bigger guys had proprietary access, and if they would use their lane history and they would be so far in front of the market because not everyone had that. Well, obviously the DATs of the world and others have really changed that game. So it is a new game today.
Yeah, it's about a playing field that I've ever seen it out there, right? Like you don't have to be a top 5 broker anymore to have any more access, any less access to information and resources, and that's what with where things are, and with it being such a unique time in human history, we can call it, Chris, with the absolute domination of AI across any and all industry out there. Are you seeing more of an appetite from business owners to be like, I want to ride off into the sunset. I've done my work. I think now's the time to walk away.
Yes. And specifically with the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, there is a lot of activity. There's a lot of people going to market. There's a lot of people who are open to that. I think it's really hard. And I say this a lot. In the old days, you work really hard for a whole bunch of years and you get to a point to sell your company and you get a whole bunch of cash up front, maybe a little bit of structure. But for the most part, you get a bunch of cash, you get to ride out. That doesn't really happen anymore. And specifically in our business, right, we're kind of relationships and talent, and there's not a lot of long-term contracts. So it's a little bit different world. And when I talk with business owners, I said, depending on how you want to partner. But back to your point, we're seeing a lot of it. I'd say the downside of that, we're seeing a lot of not very good businesses go into market and try to prop things up a little bit. I mean, their numbers aren't very good and they're taking just a little bit of momentum. The educated buyers are not going to fall into that. I put our group in that. But because we are in the marketplace and we had been for so long, we can see all the activity from the sell side, the bankers and brokers, which is a lot. We've been waiting for this, and it kind of gives you kind of the gauge of the market. But I mean, there's companies that have been around for 25 years and they're at 25 million with no growth, and they're finally making a little bit of money and they're trying to go to the market. And I'm like, you're going to have to find the right buyer. I mean, again, think through a partner, think through a buyer. Just raising your hand and going to the market and hoping people will throw some cash at you. I guess it does happen, but probably less likely than it was in the past.
Do you think now, because we kind of have a little bit of obviously M&A has been around forever, but I'm saying like more recent memory proof of concept, where back in the COVID boom, there were a lot of freight companies who sold for maybe based on their top line numbers and not their bottom line numbers. Do you think that now moving forward, your bottom line numbers are going to be pretty much the only thing people are looking at?
Yeah, if you're a good buyer, that is the case. I mean, it's a lot of them sold in 21, and you think about it, they're really smart. So those owners that said, "Hey, let's take advantage of this market and sell," which was on the high, they were really smart. So depending on who bought that and where they are in their evolution, and some of it's, were you in a niche? I mean, certain businesses have done better than others, but some of them are still clawing back. I mean, literally still not back to where they were. And so at the end of the day, you got to think about our businesses, our cash flow businesses, right? Investors buy your business today. When I explain to people, it's for future cash flow. Sure, the history is a good reference point, but they're looking for future cash flow. So as you think about a partnership, how do you have a partnership where you can convince both sides that you can grow faster? because then the buyer can pay you more, right? So again, it's all about kind of that future. And sometimes business owners, they get that, but they don't. And saying, hey, they're going to give you a bunch of cash up front. They need to get their return based on the future. So they're investors. Everyone who's buying a business is an investor of some type. And just got to take that into consideration as we think about, again, we spend a lot of time, who's the right partner, who's the right seller, who's the right buyer? Do we bring incremental value for us on the buy side? I think that's just really important. And sometimes it's not a good fit. And just really think about who you would want to sell to. And the reality is there's going to be some structure in there, which means you're going to have at least a little bit of skin in the game, if not more, kind of going forward.
Where do I'm sure there's a lot of people. I mean, I'll just use myself as an example. There's a lot of people out there who are, I'm young in my career still, right? Like, yes, I've been doing this job for a while now, but like, I plan on doing it for another 25, 30 years, right? What do you think, like this, where the current M&A market is, what would be a logical step for those business owners out there who are like, hey, I've never bought a business. I think I want to buy something here. Like, how does that all start?
Yeah. And I get a lot of people coming to me on that. And obviously we're out in the market and we'll be like, hey, Chris, maybe you can help us buy or give me some advice. And we do. But if you've never bought a company before, just think of anything else. If you're starting something for the first time ever, it's going to be really hard. And you got to think about, how you're getting into. 101, where's your capital coming from? And so there's just a whole bunch of things to think about. There's a reason, private equity, if you think about the three buckets of buyers, you got strategics, you got an industry growth partner like Koliway who does both. And then you got private equity, really has capital and then has professionals, manage them. And, they're really good at doing deals. You can argue where effective they are, and there's a lot of good ones out there and they have good operators with them and they've got a good playbook. But that's what they know how to do. If you're an operator today and you're like, hey, I've been hearing this, people are selling, I should go buy some companies. They said, okay, maybe let's take a step back. One, does it really align with your strategy? And how are you going to bring those together to have a 1 + 1 = 3, to hear the old analogy, versus, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I can just buy it at a discount or buy it on a deal. And maybe we're not big fans of that because, again, this is such an operator-led business. And, just thinking you can buy it for 20, 30, 40% cheaper. Well, you're not going to flip it. I don't think that's a good idea and not as effective. So you're going to be with some partner for a longer period of time. So, there's different thoughts. And again, if you're going to do that, get with someone who has done it before and kind of knows it, gives you a little bit of guidance. The problem is if you're small, you can't really hire someone. You don't have the dollars to do that. You're not big enough to really have. Think about my old world. I was at the biggest, right? We obviously had scale and investment to invest in a real professional corporate development, business development team. Most do not have that. And it's just a little, and then if you just do a buy side, those guys are just out looking for the company, they're, which is what you want them to do, but they're not going to bring the same type of expertise and they're not incented for it to go well after. That's just not how the model works. So you really got to think through, what makes you successful post deal.
Do you think in the current climate out there are more larger companies, specifically brokers, looking to buy up smaller brokerages and roll them up into them? Or are you starting to see smaller guys, higher activity? They're like, hey, I want to get my feet wet with one acquisition and then start like an acquisition spree, you could call it.
It's both. But if you come back to the big ones, it's been this way for a long time since I've been in buy versus build, right? And really, if you think about for them, what are they buying? And a lot of time it's talent and those relationships. Typically, it's not a technology. It's not, so that's a really hard discussion. And you'll have some really good, and we know a bunch of the names that just have decided not to do M&A. They could do it from a capital perspective. They could do it. They've got talent. They got enough people to make it work. But there's some that do. I've actually been surprised. I would have thought some of the more medium and larger would even be more active, and I think they are. So I think you're going to see more activity. But they also understand how hard it is afterwards. So they buy this company, they think it makes sense, and they integrations are tough, right? And then they typically, if they're big, they slam in their processes in the small one, and then you got to worry about breaking them. So that, you got to be good and committed. And I do think you're seeing some medium size or others that are like, if you're good at it, that's what I really come back to. Are you good at doing that? Do you have a culture and a strategy and resources? And you got to be humble, but you got to be confident, right? And when I say humble, a lot of people come in like, we're buying you, we're going to tell you what to do, everything we do is great, and just follow our lead. And that doesn't always work. And so I think why we feel good in all of our experience that we have, and we're an industry growth partner that have been in this business for a long time. We just happen to have a lot of M&A experience, right? So we're pretty well seasoned in that thought process, and we've proven that we're pretty good at it. And I think that's bigger because, again, people can get capital. That's not that you can do, but the expertise, what the plan is. I'm a big fan of having a vision up front. It doesn't have to be detailed, doesn't have to be. But if the two sides don't have a vision on how you're going to work together and make each other better, and a high level vision on who's going to run this thing. I mean, as simple as that sounds, you get into this, you got people. I mean, the hardest part to manage in these businesses is the people, right? Yeah. I mean, that is the hardest part, and but they're the key. They drive all the value. Technology comes with the people. I'm a huge fan of the AI. It's real. We're doubling down on it. That's very, very real. But the people isn't going to go to zero. Right? Is it going to be less? Yes, it will. But it's not going to be zero. And the people who understand how to utilize the technology better will be even more powerful than the ones that aren't getting on board with the AI and technology movements.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is there's so much up in the air right now on where the future of things are going. And, just talking about AI and automation in tech, and I think that I almost think that the smaller companies that implement it early are at a larger, your growth potential and your upside is way larger than some of the maybe more established companies that are out there because of what you're talking about, people and then change management. How many hurdles do you see in that of that change management conflict where it's like you got the new school of thought coming in here and trying to teach these individuals who are like, we've been doing this way for 20 years. We make money. Why are you trying to change anything? And it's because like they haven't really thought outside the box, and just because it's worked. And I just look at it now, Chris, more than ever, it's only a matter of time before it touches every single shipper in North America.
Yeah. So the change management, and we use that as a criteria, to be honest. If you go into a company to partner, acquire, whatever the situation may be, changes are coming. And then you put the environment we're in today. We've looked at some businesses that they've got some good relationships. They got some people who kind of know what they're doing, but that change management, they're not very comfortable with. So you have change management of an acquisition or partnership, and then you have what's happening in our world. And so you just got to be really cognizant of, we actually would put more stock or value in a company and in a culture that is more open to change management. Like, hey, let's go do something better. They would come, like we're having one right now. They're like, boy, this AI thing is tough. What do you think? I said, well, right now you're doing it on your own, right? Why don't you partner with someone like us who has multiple companies and doing this with multiple people that you can leverage, so you're not doing it. And I think that's another thing about if you're a brokerage today, the challenge is you're doing a lot of it on your own. You're figuring out the tech, you're figuring out the IE, you're figuring out the talent, you're just doing it on your own. And it gets to be a lot, and until you get over those humps. And we see that, the hump is typically 50 million, maybe it's 100, right? Somewhere, maybe, somewhere in that where you can get a founder and a small group of really talented people to get up to a certain state. How do you get to the next stage? I mean, and that's, you got to invest at a different spot. You got to bring people in. You got to partner with someone like us. We see a lot of that, as you imagine. There's a lot of brokers between 25 and 100 million out there. There's thousands and thousands of them who are very successful. Some are just good with what we call a lifestyle business. They're making at least okay money. I tell them, I say, that's going to be good for a while. I just don't know how long you want to hold on to that with the world changing as much as it is. And, some of the bigger ones they've got competitive advantages, right? You think about the C.H. Robinsons of the world and others, is that type of scale is kind of meaningful. I still don't believe there's going to be an overall consolidation where there's only a few players that win. That's not going to happen at all. But I feel for some of the ones who just are kind of holding on. And I see a lot of that. So that's something that we try to really talk to them. Hey, maybe we're not the right partner, but what's your growth strategy and what's your survival strategy is probably another thing we've talked about with them as well.
Do you think a lot of people who maybe embark upon the M&A journey, right? Like they're like, hey, I want to buy somebody, and do you think they don't think about their long-term vision? Like, what do you actually want to do with your company? What do you want to build it up to? What do you want to scale? Do you want to hit a certain revenue and then exit at that time? Do you see that is it's a hurdle that a lot of people, because it's like, the excitement of the buy probably supersedes a lot of people and clouds a lot of people's judgments that are out there. I would only imagine. Do you think that that's something that most people don't think about on either side of the transaction?
Yep. A lot of our dialogues up front is we sit down and what's your goals? What's our goals? And it's a really hard question. And I'm a business owner too. And sometimes you feel like you're getting backed into a corner and you don't want to commit. I said directional. I'm not saying dollar for dollar. Do you want to run this thing for 5 years and exit? Do you want to partner with someone? Do you want to get to that 500 million? Do you want to, upgrade your talent or technology? High level stuff on what you're trying to accomplish that's going to get to your end goal. And if your end goal is selling the company. Sometimes, hey, I've got a management team that I want to sell to. Directional. I'd be like, okay, that's an option. We can help set that up, but we get there, maybe it's not. But it's really interesting to talk with business owners, and I would be one of them, that they don't want, and I'm probably more specific because I'm in this game. But if you really ask them, they like, because you think about, they have done so successful, just kind of working hard, doing it well. They never needed a master plan to kind of get there. If you think about, people have been successful in our world, in the brokerage world, and built a $50 million brokerage. They grinded it out. They were good with customers. There was ups and downs. But I do think at this stage, when you're more mature, having a vision of what your goals are and sharing that with your partner to see if you have alignment is good. Because if we get in there and they have no clue what their goals are, it's really hard for us to help them. Right? I'm like, hey, unless you are more specific, because a lot of it's timing. I'm like, is it 1 year or is it 5 years? If you don't want to sell today, I totally get that. And is it a number? And a lot of people sell, I have a retirement number, or a lot of them, like I get, it's multiples, right? And they want to keep up with what they hear in the market, which is always a grain of salt. And I want to get that multiple. And so I'd rather have them communicate what their goals are, even if it's maybe either unreasonable or not well thought through. At least they have a goal, which I think is really important.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think goes, that goes through my mind. Yeah, it's probably one of my most frequent thoughts, Chris, is am I actually on the right path of what I truly want to do? Or am I just saying this to say it? Right. And I think it's a hard thing for a lot of entrepreneurs to really kind of come to grips with, right? Because it's like, most entrepreneurs are the ultimate gamblers, right? Most of us literally emptied our savings, emptied our retirement, threw everything into making this work. So it's like, and I think every entrepreneur goes through this. You don't have, at least for individuals like myself who started businesses with 0 customers and 0 revenue, like I had no guarantees. And it takes so much grit to get something off the ground, to get to 6 figures of revenue and 7 figures of revenue and stuff like that, where you're like, I'm going to build $100 gazillion company that's out there. And then I think after a while, you start to realize, at least I know I've came to this realization, like, hey, if we want to buy trucks one day, I'm not going to start a trucking company from scratch. I've started 3 companies from scratch, $0, 0 revenue. I want to buy a system. All right. I want to buy a system and then we can refine it, automate it, and come in with that. But I know at this point, I don't want to start another business from 0, at least not in transportation.
Yeah, you do. For people that are business owners or entrepreneurs, it's special and it's not for most people. What you figure out is there's a reason most people don't do that. It takes guts. It takes a stomach. You are putting it all in, and you got good days and bad days. And just, for anyone who hasn't been in those shoes, it's interesting. And I talk to a lot of people, about that. And would you ever think about being a business owner? Oh, yes, it sounds great. And I'm like, are you willing to sacrifice this, this, and this? And they're like, oh, well, that doesn't sound as good. Are you really willing to take any risk? Not really, So it sounds sexy, but it's really, really hard. And think about that. So you're grinding it out, and say you built a round number, $25 million brokerage. You're making good money. You're not really sure. You're like, well, I just put it all in last time and it worked out. I'm just at 25 million, but they're at that hump. Like, okay, do I hire a sales team? Do I do this? And they're at this hump of decision making. Sometimes take a step back and say, what's going to make you happy? Obviously, there's a family component. There's a team component. You're like, okay, do we double down now, or do we take some risk off the table, right? And those are not easy decisions to make. And there's different drivers. Like yourself, you're continuing to invest in the business and do a bunch of things, and you have a vision for some of the expansion that you want to see, right? So it's like, okay, how do I prepare myself and get myself to make those moves? But you're right. I think that's the hard part is people have been so successful, and there's a bunch of them. If there's 25,000 brokers out there, I mean, there's a lot of them have been successful, not all, but the high majority, if they're still around, have done something right. You got to give them a lot of credit for that. It's what's the next stage, and what is it worth? Like when we talk about growth, they're like, I want to get into a new service. I'm like, okay, that's great. I said, typically when you get a new service, you're going to lose money. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you just don't pop up. I want to start doing LTL if you've never done LTL before, or you want to go buy some trucks. I mean, out of the gate, unless you buy a company that's got, I see that as an investment, and you have to make a decision. And some people are like, yeah, I want to keep what I'm doing, or do low investment side as well. But yeah, you got to give a lot of credit to the entrepreneur who does that every day and puts it all on the line. You really do.
Do you see a larger number of business owners who are getting close to retirement, Chris, that are like, I don't want to do another market shift, right? Like, I don't want to deal with the AI technology. I want to walk away, but I don't have a succession plan. How do I exit my company now and make sure my people who have been with me for maybe 10, 20 years are protected? Because I think I would assume that stops a lot of people from selling, and they just continue to show up when they wanted to retire 5 years ago.
And it also keeps a lot of people from buying, right? So, we see that a lot. And again, this is where we're probably a little bit different because we can bring some talent to the table. But even us, it's like, well, if you have zero succession planning, that's actually going to be a problem, right? You got to have somebody, some thought process, something. So that's actually an issue. One of the biggest things we have is that I'm like, well, wait a second, you built this business. Yeah, you handed off some of the relationships, but they still know you're the owner. You brought in all the talent. I hear, well, I'm not working every day. And I said, I get that. But going forward, what's going to keep them here? Going forward, who's going to bring in the new customer? So that's something you got to plan ahead on. Again, and there's things that we do, Koliway does to have that dialogue, because we're in a little bit different spot because of our backgrounds. Private equity, they're not going to be able to do that in an effective way, because they're going to bring in a president, a CEO, or somebody to do that who's going to be really cold. So their risk is going to be higher, and they're going to have to discount that. So that's not going to be their preferred kind of method if you have that type of succession risk, because they don't know the business as well, right? So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges some of these brokerages have who've been around for a while, is some type of plan where buyers can get comfortable going forward, because a lot of the value is sitting in that founder, which is a challenge.
No, I see that. I see that firsthand in a lot of the conversations I have with people out there. Is it's like, I think that's a natural progression that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, is a systems development and removing their necessity from the equation. And I think that is where I'm starting to see this. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. The real value is the system that you create to where you don't have to be there. It's not you, right? Like, yeah, you're the face, you're the visionary, you're the rah-rah, all of that. But ultimately, if you don't develop a system behind you that doesn't continue to operate, whether you're there or not, I think that is one of the hardest things for people to let go of.
Yeah. And you think about, they've grown up being so hands-on, so important. They define themselves by the work. Some of them can't do it or don't want to do it. Most of them are getting smarter about, if I'm going to sell this thing, I got to get a process behind me. And when you say process, it's process and it's people. Right? That thing is not just automated going on. You've got to have some good people that manage the process, that refine the process, right? You got to have some leadership in there. You got to have some talent. Like I said earlier, things are changing a lot. There's more technology and automation coming than ever, but you still got to have a person in there. Again, I hate to say it, there's going to be less people really around some of those manual tasks. Because if you just think about just on leadership and commercial, who's going to sell going forward? Because right now you got a small brokerage, it's really expensive to hire a sales team, and it's not very effective. You pay a bunch of money. In most cases, they don't do as well as you'd like, and everyone's frustrated, right? And so that's a hard game.
I've literally heard that from almost everyone I know that owns a company, and that's not just a transportation thing. When it comes to sales teams and sales out there, it's the biggest investment that more often than not brings the lowest return back to their organization.
Yeah, and I think that's really tough. I mean, and you see people do that, and they're like, "Yeah, then make up a number. I've got a couple $1 million EBITDA business. Salespeople are expensive. I've tried to hire a few of them over the years. I've probably spent $1 million and I've got nothing back." And that happens more times than not. And then you got to think about other things. Hey, you got anyone in your company who you think can sell if you just trained them? Can you do different? That's what I think. Think about partnerships, right? Think about, whether it's even on the acquisition side or not. Can you be part of a company that has a good sales team or has a different go-to-market, could leverage your customer relationships, or could leverage some of the things you have? Think creatively other than just hiring a cold sales team, which is really difficult. Growth is hard in our world. So, all of these challenges it's not like we have the magic wand either. But I think, we do have some tools and some other things that are helpful, but it's hard for all of us, including us.
Yeah, no, business development is hard. And the internet age that we're in, Chris, and social media age makes it look so much easier and so much more appealing than it actually is when you're in the process and actually trying to develop this system out. But Chris, I appreciate your time. This flew by. I feel like we could have gone. I have so much more I want to talk about. So I'm going to have to bring you on at another time this year, because there's just so much tied up with this. But how does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, which is www.koliway.com. Obviously, you can reach out to me. I've got 2 operating partners with Matt and Brian, who grew up in the industry as well. So we really tilt towards that industry experience. Obviously, we're on LinkedIn as well, or you can directly send me an email. But yeah, I love talking with transportation and logistics owners and founders and entrepreneurs. It gives me energy as a business owner, because we've sat in their chair and had different. They're all a little different, but I'm going to TIA next week, so hopefully I'll see some people down there as well. I know I've got a bunch of meetings lined up, so looking forward to that. But I really appreciate the time today, so thank you.
No, absolutely, Chris. And I appreciate it as well. If you guys can't find Chris or his company out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with him. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moves.